we are ready to rock and roll. All right. So I'm going to bring in Instagram and then we are good to go. Let's do this on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. We try to come in here and give real advice, not this kind of fitness influencer perfect bullshit that we don't think works. What instead we try to do is give you it as we as coaches live our life, and it's very practical. And so if you haven't subscribed to the podcast already, you can find it on Apple and Spotify and all the works. But let's get into today's episode. As I was telling the clients before we started, I'm here in beautiful sunny Las Vegas for the NRL opening round, supporting my beloved Canberra Raiders. Sorry, I'm about the only person in the world that supports the Raiders. It's been a tough run. But what we're going to be doing here is talking a little bit about how to party and not get fat. And the reason I think that this is topical is because I'm going to party and I'm not going to get fat. And so I think what a lot of people do is when they are entering a transformation, when they're going into this period of their life where they're like, you know what, I need to make my health a priority. I need to make my fitness a priority. Maybe I need to lose a little bit of weight. And if that's you, congratulations. I think that they take an all or nothing approach to it. And so what ends up happening is you think that in order to maintain weight, you've got to become like a social hermit, maybe, in order to keep the weight off. And I think for a lot of people, they're balancing off, well, lose weight and feel amazing or become a social hermit and not do any of this stuff, or just continue and enjoy my life. I just think it's a silly paradigm to be thinking you've got to choose between enjoying your life or having this kind of sterile life, but being overweight that you want to be. That's just not how I live my life. And very importantly, I think that there's a short term. We're going to be talking about the short term here. So some short term tips on what you can do to offset the damage of a big night. But actually, the most important thing here is the long-term viewpoint that you have. If your transformation that you're trying to get in place here is about a long-term lifestyle change, well, guess what? A couple of nights where you go out and get a bit pissed is not really the biggest deal. So many people quit their transformation because they had some KFC and then felt like a failure and felt all the guilt, or they went out and got on a bender for a night or two in Vegas, or they went to their friend's barbecue and they think, because I did that, then I might as well quit. You do not need to play in this game. But what I will say is that if you're playing a longer game, a lifestyle game, guess what's going to happen? Any one day or one night where you fall off the horse, it really does not matter because you're going to be doing this for the next 50 years. So stop worrying about one night where you let your hair down, for God's sake. The second point about the long-term perspective is this. One of the things that allows me I could go and drink 50 beers over the next 2 nights and I wouldn't put on weight. And the reason is because I have, at 42 years old, nearly 43, built muscle. And when you build muscle, you develop a stronger metabolism. So to you ladies and gentlemen that would like to have a little bit more fun in your life, you want to know what the best strategy for being able to make that possible is and still manage your weight? It's to build some muscle, because when you build muscle, that muscle needs calories. And so if you have a few extra calories, guess what? It just gets sucked up by the muscle, which we call your metabolism, and nothing happens. So let's get into, now that we understand the kind of landscape, right? The longer term perspective of how you manage this with a stronger metabolism and not letting any one day worry you, let's talk about more short-term strategies, okay? So what if you are on a journey and you want to have a big night, like I probably will tonight? What should you do? Well, I think the first thing is that most people say they want balance, right? They say, okay, I need to have balance in my life, So I want to be able to have some indulgences and I want to be able to have some strictness as well, right? I need to be in balance. But they think that balance means 50-50, 50% indulgences and 50% kind of doing the right thing, so to speak. You're just never going to make it work if you're thinking that it's 50-50. It's just not 50-50. You can't drink tons of beers, eat out, eat at cafes, smash yourself with ice cream every night for 50% of the time, and then the other 50% of time be on track. It's never going to work. And the reason is because calories in food are hidden everywhere and you don't know it. And until you start to get a grip on your nutrition, trying to think that you can be good half the time and bad half the time just won't work. It's more like 90-20. So what I look for in my life is probably more closer to 95-5. I'm doing the right thing for 90 to 95% of the time, but I allow myself 5 to 10% of indulgence. So what is the problems with actually like going a little bit wild too often? Like, what's the actual problems? Because I think a lot of people think that it's just the extra calories, right? But let's make a point here. It's not just the extra calories that are the problem. When you go a little bit too frequent, here's what happens. Yes, you get the extra calories and they are impossible to set off. But in addition to that, you're not hitting your protein target, which means you're not building muscle. In fact, if you're having a bunch of alcohol, alcohol disrupts the building of muscle, which we call protein synthesis. So if you're having lots of alcohol and hoping to build some lean muscle, the two just don't go hand in hand. The second thing is that alcohol and generally staying up really late leads to tiredness, right? And so if you're tired all the time, what are the chances of you being able to go to the gym, consistently, to be able to make good decisions? They're fucking not there. Right. Why? It's because if you're tired, just like in the ads about, falling asleep at the wheel, you're tired, you fall asleep, you make bad decisions. It's the exact same thing when it comes to nutrition. You're tired, so you make bad decisions. The final point that I want to make here is that if you're the sort of person that is a little bit borderline with booze, you may need to take a little bit more of an all or nothing approach. The reason I say that is because so many people say that they don't have an issue with alcohol, but I really do think they do. They let it run their life. And if the moment that you have 2 or 3 drinks means that like you're going fucking all in and you're falling off totally, then the chances of you being able to get back on track are just constantly hard because you keep reminding yourself that you're the type of person that has a problem with alcohol, and every time you drink, you can't get back on track. So I wanted to talk a bit about the mindset of this first. Now I want to give you 10 simple tips that in a short-term way, you can still party and not get fat by offsetting calories. So let's talk about the first thing. Number 1 is to plan for having a really strong morning routine. I mean, that might sound very obvious, but I know that I'm going to have a good few extra calories tonight. One of my mates, best mates, is arriving and we're going to hang out and we're going to drink a few beers, and that means extra calories. So what I'm going to do, we call it the deposit withdrawal strategy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of deposits early on. So for me, I've already been to the hotel gym for an hour. I've already got my 10,000 steps. So I'm depositing early so that I can withdraw later. Just think of it simply like a bank account, okay? Deposit early, withdraw later. If you deposit early, you're going to be able to feel a little bit more like, even though I don't like this idea of earning your food or earning your alcohol, when it comes to partying, I think it's always good to just go, you know what? I went and did some stuff this morning. I got that under my belt. And now I can sit down and relax without having to think about the fact that, oh, you know what? Like my steps are only 2,000 for the day and I didn't train and I'm going to be feeling a little bit seedy tomorrow. So I'm probably not going to train tomorrow. You're banking some good stuff early. So that's the first point. The second point is you want to prioritize your protein. It does not matter. Okay. It does not matter that you're going out and drinking. You still need to prioritize your protein. It doesn't matter that you're going out and having an indulgent meal. You still got to prioritize your protein. The reason for this is that if you're trying to build lean tissue, lean muscle over time, so you've got a strong metabolism, we don't really store protein aside from turn it into muscle. But apart from that, we don't have a storage of protein like we do for fat and carbohydrate. So you have to be hitting your protein targets every day. The second benefit of doing this is that you're going to feel fuller. If you are eating more protein, you're going to feel fuller, which in turn is going to stop you from overeating. Now, I'll just give you an example. Let's say that you were going to a Chinese restaurant, okay, typically very carbohydrate and fat based. If you do not prioritize your protein and you just fill up on fried rice and honey chicken, what's going to end up happening is pretty soon you're going to be hungry again 2 or 3 hours after leaving the restaurant. And then you're going to want to eat again. This is the impact of a high carb, high fat diet. Whereas if you were to prioritize the protein and get it in early, that takes the hunger away. I want to say that one of the great things you can do to both minimize the calories and maximize the protein is in the morning, just for breakfast, have like a good solid protein shake on water. So if you take 2 scoops of whey protein isolate, put it in water, the nice thing about that is you're going to get 50 grams of protein and literally 230, 40 calories. So it's nothing. You're getting in the protein without all the calories. I think if you're about to have a party night or a bit of a barbecue or a bit of an indulgence tonight, for breakfast, what should you have? To me, 2 scoops of protein powder and on water with a banana and a coffee. Perfect breakfast. You're getting the protein in early. Number 3, you've got to hydrate well. This is like people like, oh yeah, you got to hydrate well. Yeah, obviously. Not obviously. We think we know it, but we don't do it. There is nothing wrong with over drinking water, if that makes sense. A lot of people say, oh, can you drink too much water? No, you can't drink too much water. You really cannot drink too much water. Like technically, yes, but for the average person, no. Right. So what you should be doing and what I'll be doing today is making sure that I'm drinking a bunch of fluid. I'm doing that to get ahead of the dehydration curve. I don't even need to talk about this anymore. It's just like, get your water in early. Okay. Number 3, when it comes to alcohol, there's having a drink and being okay with that. And then there's okay, what do I drink? This is the real skill in being able to manage your weight, but still have a good time. Rather than thinking you can't have everything, you just make better choices within the category. So you have alcohol, but you either have a lower alcohol content. That's one option. Option 2 is have a lower sugar content. Now, lower carb content. So when it comes to an alcoholic drink, the calories are in 2 places. One, the alcohol, which is when you see percentage alcohol on there, that's what it means, the alcohol portion. So the lower the alcohol percentage, the lower the calories are going to be. So for example, a full calorie beer versus a mid-strength beer is going to have lower calories if the carbs are the same. What you can do is not only choose a lower calorie beer, but you can choose a lower carb beer. Lower calories and lower carb and lower alcohol combined gives you a lower calorie beer. This is what I do. I think this is a really, really great option. And maybe it's because I'm getting fucking old, perhaps, but I have no problems drinking mid-strength beers because mid-strength, low-carb beers, that is fantastic. You can still continue to drink over the course of the night, but half the calories, basically. what are you having with your alcohol? So if you're having a bourbon or a gin or a scotch or whatever, it's just an absolute no-brainer to have it with a diet version. Like, why on earth are people still drinking Coke? I can only think that it's because they're worried about something they've heard about Diet Coke causing cancer. That can be the only possible reason. And it's not true. Okay. For the everyday person, having 5 bourbon and Diet Cokes is going to be a much better choice for like every single person on the planet. It's going to be a much better choice than having 5 bourbon and Diet Cokes. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So you can still have the booze, but choose well within the booze. Let's keep going. What are we up to? 4, 5. Pick your indulgence foods. So if you are going to go out for meals, and I think like socializing with my close friends is what gives me happiness. So I'm not going to stop doing that just to stay fit. But what I will do is choose the types of foods that I eat. For example, having a pork belly, it gives me zero fucking pleasure because I don't like pork belly. So even though it might taste good, I'm not going to pick that. I'm going to choose indulgence foods that I want to actually eat. If I'm going to take a withdrawal from my calorie bank account, I'm going to make it something that I actually really, really enjoy. So for me tonight, I've chosen a steakhouse. Now I know full well that steak's going to be covered in your butter and fucking like it's 1,000-calorie steak at least. Having said that, it's something I really love. It's not something that I'm kind of eating and I'm kind of half passionate about. Does that make sense, guys? Let's keep going. Simple strategy is to back end the calories. What does that mean? Well, simply it means that if you're going to have an indulgent night, you just have the calories at the back end of the day. So you can either do what I said, which is do like a protein shake breakfast and then leave the calories for later on. Or you could even do some fasting at breakfast and again, leave the calories for later on. It doesn't matter when you eat the calories. Meal timing is just very, very unimportant in weight management. What's important is the average total calories of each day. So if you are having a huge breakfast, a kind of a middle-sized lunch, and then a huge dinner, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you're going to go way over your calorie budget. So stop doing that. Just have a lighter breakfast. So for me, I had some egg whites scrambled with some turkey bacon and a wrap and a protein bar. And that's pretty much all I'm going to have until lunchtime. I'm not going to be sitting there like I normally do, having this huge breakfast, and then I'm not banking calories for the rest of the day. Okay, here's a really simple one that you can do. Walk to dinner. One of the great things about being in Las Vegas is there's a long strip, right? I did 20,000 steps yesterday accidentally. You can do the same thing. If you can walk to dinner or walk after dinner, this really helps the digestive process, but also it's been proven to assist with what's called your insulin sensitivity. So that's your ability to actually utilize the food that you've just eaten in a very good way without spiking your blood sugar. We don't need to go into the details of it, but suffice to say, going for a walk after your heavy dinner, that's a great idea. Easy to do in Vegas, maybe not so easy to do if you live in a remote town, but take the point. Okay, we're coming to the end of this. Managing sleep is a big thing. For me, I'm so passionate about my clients and what we're doing here in Better Body Academy that I cut a lot of sleep, and it's not good. And I'm doing it knowing that there are consequences. So if I now go out for an indulgent night and don't go to bed until 3 a.m., my kids are here as well. They're going to get up at the normal 6 or 7 a.m. and I'm going to have 4 hours sleep. All you parents know exactly what that means. Now, I'm not a huge party animal, so it's easy for me to say, but does anything good happen after midnight? Or is it kind of like, well, I'm out and we've got a nanny, so we might as well just stay here and keep drinking? I mean, for me, I've always had this little bit of awareness that kicks in where I'm like, fuck, I know where this is going. Like, I don't really want to stay here and just throw in more calories, just keep getting more drunk, making myself feel worse tomorrow. So, what you can do is bank some sleep before you go out. That's a really good idea. If you have the ability to bank some sleep after a night out, that actually really, really does help you try to catch up on some sleep. But I think the main point is just look, like when you're sitting there at 1 o'clock in the morning, is there anything good that's coming of this? Certainly, if that happens for me, someone spiked my drink with something because I'm like, fuck, like, why am I here still? Okay. Probably the final point that I want to raise here, guys, is not falling into this all or nothing trap. Again, I think that this is what most people do. My approach is I've got good intentions of kind of being home by 12, 1 o'clock, done, had a good night, had a few beers, had a great meal, amazing. And I get back to normal tomorrow. I think what a lot of people do is they're either all in or all out. Go out, enjoy your night, and what? After that, just get back to normal tomorrow or the next day, whenever you're feeling good again. We don't need to feel guilty about having a good time. I always say to people, if you've got to become a social hermit or develop an eating disorder in order to manage your weight, I just don't know if that's actually worth it personally. I mean, it's not for me. You still want to keep living. The goal is not to create a sterile life. The goal is to create an abundant, free life where you're not stuck to your weight anymore, but you can go out and have a really, really, really good time. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to give one bonus tip that I've just thought of. And I'm saying this bonus tip because I was sitting there last night and my beautiful wife has not played slot machines for 10 years or something like that. Neither have I. And I used to see what it was like because I worked in pubs while I was studying at university. And I used to see what it was like at the end of the night and how much money were taken by poker machines. So I got a really good insight into that. And it's fucking horrendous, just quietly. And so I think if you're going to have an indulgence, just the final tip that I would have is do something you love, like you truly love. For me, it's going out to dinner, enjoying a wine with my friends, with my close friends. That to me is magic. But I was sitting there last night and my missus was like, come on, let's go have some fun on the slot machines for a while. And I was just sitting there as she was doing it, just going like, I fucking hate this. This isn't fun to me. This is not fun. And to you, it might be fun. I'm not criticizing it. But I guess just make sure that if you're going to take some withdrawals, just make sure it's actually something that's worth doing in your mind, because at the end of the day, you got to balance them off against your deposits. And if you leave there and kind of feel like, well, that gave me a little bit of pleasure, but not really, I don't really care about it, didn't make me happy, that's when the regret starts to kick in a little bit. Does that make sense? Okay, guys, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast, coming to you with a weekend podcast talking about how to party and not get fat. Maybe I'm trying to give myself a little bit of a coaching session here this morning. Hopefully it was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, team, we are done and dusted for another episode. We're starting to approach 400 episodes of the podcast, by the way. And if you haven't looked at the podcast and given it a rating, certainly love you to do that. That's on either Apple or Spotify or Amazon or Google, anywhere where the podcasts are. Unfortunately, to our clients, the comments has been disabled, so I'm not able to see anything you guys are writing, but I'll go and have a look after that now. Thanks, Vicky. I appreciate you. And Wild One looks like a pre-recorded voiceover. What's up with that? I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm actually real, not AI. Hi, Wild One. Anyway, guys, have a nice evening, afternoon, or morning. We'll chat soon.